"This isn't a pharmacy, sweetie," the flight attendant said, holding up my prescription inhaler like it was some kind of dirty secret, like she was about to pull out rubber gloves and start frisking me for contraband then. With this smug little flick of her wrist, she tossed it into the trash, right there at gate 47, Chicago O'Hare, and the sound that inhaler made when it hit the bottom? It was hollow, echoing, final, and suddenly the entire gate went silent, every eye snapping up from their screens, as if the plane itself had just shuddered to a stop. You could feel the attention shift, like a herd turning at the scent of smoke, and I remember thinking, you know what I mean? This is how it starts. A businessman folded his paper. A mom yanked her toddler closer. People sense trouble before they even know what it is, especially at airports. Especially when it's a little black girl with a navy blazer and careful posture and a doctor's note gripped so tightly her knuckles turn white. Try not to cry. Try not to breathe too hard because, well, when your lungs fail you and grown-ups decide your medicine looks suspicious, you learn to ration every inhale. Cheryl, that was her name. She dusted off her hands like she just cleaned up something nasty. The fluorescent light flashing off her American Airlines badge, 15 years on the job. A badge she wore like armor in around us. Flight 2847 sat at the gate. Engines waiting, everybody restless from the delay, but now all eyes on me, on my medicine, on whether or not I was about to cause a scene. And let me back up a sec because it started 20 minutes earlier. The usual chaos at pre-boarding, business folks tapping on laptops, parents wrangling sugar-charged kids, everybody eyeing the departure screen, and me, Zara Williams, rolling my little suitcase toward the counter, blazer freshly ironed, trying to look more grown than I felt, because when you're 12 and traveling alone, you don't want anyone to think you need help. "Excuse me," I said, my voice steady like I practiced. "I have asthma. My doctor said I should pre-board to avoid the rush." Cheryl didn't even look up. Unaccompanied minors board with family, she said, monotone, not caring, not seeing me. And then I pulled out the inhaler, blue, label facing out, Zara Williams, albuterol sulfate, Dr. Patricia Carter, Chicago Children's Hospital. The label was clear as day, but Cheryl took it like she was picking up a dead bug, turned it over, held it up to the light, frowned. "This looks generic," she said loudly. "Real prescriptions don't come in plain packaging." A hush fell. Businessman put his paper down. Woman with twins froze mid-diaper change. Phones came out, faces curious, half concerned, half bored, and I said quietly, "It's from Children's Hospital. My name is right there. Labels can be faked, sweetie." Cheryl said, giving me that adult tone, the one that says, "I've decided you're lying, and now we're both trapped in the story I want to tell." And she kept it. "It wears your medical travel form?" she demanded. I blinked, not knowing what she meant. Medical travel form. "Exactly," she snapped. "Real sick kids know about those." She waved at Marcus, the security guard, the big one, who lumbered over like this was what he'd trained for. "Marcus," she said, "we might have a situation." Marcus looked at me, at Cheryl, at the inhaler. "What's the problem?" he asked. "This child is trying to board with what appears to be fake medication," Cheryl declared. "No proper documentation, claims she has asthma, but doesn't know basic medical travel procedures." Now, India Thompson, a marketing exec from Atlanta, was watching from seat 23A in the gate area, and something about it must have felt wrong to her, because she opened Facebook and started a live video. "All seeing this?" she whispered, and just like that, the story started to spread. I held out my folder, years of ER visits, specialist notes, doctor's letters, but Cheryl barely glanced. "Kids today know how to use computers," she muttered nearby. A woman with twins turned to her husband and said, "Maybe she shouldn't be flying alone if she's really sick," and India's phone buzzed with comments. "This is discrimination. Poor baby. Record everything." Cheryl leaned in, her voice syrupy. "You know what I think? I think someone's playing dress up. Unaccompanied minors don't fly first class, honey. Someone's trying to scam their way into a better seat first class." The words hit like a thrown shoe, and suddenly everybody's craning for a look at my boarding pass. Kevin, another gate agent, mid-30s, tired eyes, the look of someone who's seen every airport scam in the book, came over. "Problem here? Possible ticket fraud," Cheryl said. "This child claims to have a first-class seat and medical needs, but her story doesn't add up. Can I see your ticket?" Kevin asked. "Seat 2A, he announced. "That's a $2,200 upgrade from coach." Murmurs rippled. Passengers exchanging looks, the math not adding up in their heads. Kevin wanted more ID, payment verification, Adult approval. Everything I produced got the same suspicious glance, like nothing from me could be legit. My hand started to shake, not from asthma, but from the feeling of being examined, tested, doubted at every turn. And you know what? Yeah, that happened. I remember glancing around and seeing sides form, some people shaking their heads, muttering about kids these days, others clearly outraged, taking out their phones, one college student at gate 46 filming quietly, and then, as if on cue, an elderly black woman in the front row, Dorothy Johnson, retired teacher, grandmother, stood up and marched toward us. "This child is being harassed," she declared, and suddenly the tension broke open. Patricia, the supervisor, tried to brush her off, but Dorothy wouldn't. But she called it like it was discrimination, the thing everybody was afraid to name. Patricia announced she'd have to contact Child Protective Services. Unaccompanied minor, questionable documentation, expensive tickets. Human trafficking was the phrase she used, and the way it hit me, I felt like the floor dropped out. I wasn't just being treated like a criminal. Now, I was being turned into a victim, a problem, a case file. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from my dad. "Daddy's handling it. Baby girl, hold your head high." I straightened up, met their eyes, and quietly said, "I think you should call your supervisor." My voice, for the first time, sounded old enough to silence the room. Suddenly, everything escalated. Supervisors, security, priority calls. India's live stream hit over 1,200 viewers. The hashtag Gate47 trending in 3 states. And then James Wilson, airport operations manager, hustled to the gate, got a call from headquarters, and I watched his face turn pale as he realized who I was. Zara Williams, daughter of Damon Williams, board member of American Airlines, chairman of the corporate governance committee, and my dad was already inbound on his private jet. Legal team intel. From then on, the energy shifted, the crowd sensing something was happening. Watching the grown-ups realize just how badly they'd screwed up. Patricia's clipboard clattered to the floor. Kevin stared at his computer. Cheryl's hands shook so badly, she almost dropped my inhaler. Marcus's voice cracked as he asked, "Legal team?" Angela Hayes, the regional VP, arrived at the gate, issued an on-the-spot apology to me and camera. For everyone to see. Me inhaler was returned to me like a crown. Every adult in that circle suddenly terrified, apologetic, scrambling to save their jobs, their reputations, their company. As the story went viral, news crews setting up, boardrooms in crisis mode, stock price dropping by the minute. But my dad? He didn't storm in, didn't raise his voice, let the facts speak, laid out a proposal for systemic reform: mandatory bias training, third-party monitoring, real-time social media escalation, monthly compliance reports, a customer advocate at the executive level. He made it clear, this isn't about money. This is about dignity, about making sure what happened to me never happens to another kid. And one by one, the adults took accountability on livestream. Cheryl, Kevin, Patricia, Marcus, each admitting they let their assumptions cloud their judgment, treated me as less because they couldn't believe a young black girl belonged in first class. Me dad nodded. That's the first step toward change. When it was finally over, when American Airlines had agreed to every term, when the media had broadcast the apology, when the corporate executives had watched a 12-year-old hold her ground in front of an entire system built to doubt her, something shifted, not just at Gate 47, but across the industry. Other airlines rolled out their own bias training, monitoring systems. Compliance officers' complaints dropped, satisfaction rose, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I'd made a difference just by refusing to shrink. 6 weeks later, Cheryl sat in the front row of the new bias awareness program, raising her hand to explain how she'd learned the difference between protocol and prejudice. Patricia became a customer advocate, using her mistakes to train others. Marcus, the security guard, led bias response teams at O'Hare, teaching his colleagues how to see the real threat. Not a little girl with asthma, but the danger of letting unconscious bias decide who belongs. India Thompson, whose live stream started it all, got honored by the NAACP, said, "Sometimes we have to protect each other by bearing witness when institutions fail us." And me? I went back to Gate 47 a year later, rolling my suitcase, inhaler in my pocket, same first-class ticket, but everything was different. Gate agents greeted me. Security nodded respectfully. The monitoring system quietly making sure what happened to me wouldn't happen again. But the real change was human. Cheryl came up to me, quietly thanked me for teaching her about dignity, and I told her, "Thank you for learning from it, because that's what growth looks like." Standing at the National Youth Leadership Conference in D.C., I told my story. Looking out at hundreds of kids, I said, "Dignity isn't something others can take from you, it's something you carry. And you only lose it if you let Goth's standing ovation lasted 4 minutes." My dad recording from the back like any proud parent. American Airlines quarterly reports showing drops in complaints, jumps in satisfaction. Bias awareness at all-time highs. But the real victory? The system changed because a child refused to accept discrimination as normal. Because people documented injustice, demanded accountability, and insisted on both personal and systemic healing. The Williams effect. They called Ida's single story turning into a movement. So what about you? Have you ever witnessed injustice and wondered if you could make a difference? The answer is yes, but it takes courage to document what you see, wisdom to respond strategically, and the persistence to demand more than just apologies. Your story matters. Your voice matters. And when you add it to the chorus of those refusing to accept bias as normal, you help turn individual pain into collective power. Share your story below. What discrimination have you seen? What system needs to change? Every experience matters. Every truth makes it harder for injustice to hide. And together, we don't just tell touching stories, we build a movement that transforms real pain into lasting justice. Are you ready to be heard?